Hello friends, welcome to Akul Mac Business Channel, and in today's edition of Grit and Glory, we are going to talk about Mr. Nambi Narayanan. Nambi is perhaps the best known brain in the space science in India. He is a ISRO scientist, or rather he was a ISRO scientist, and he is also the developer of the Vikas engine. Let us find out about Nambi Narayanan's life journey and explore what has happened, why he is so famous, and what awards he has got. Well, friends, as some of us may already know about Nambi Narayanan, he is the scientist who is a fellow of NASA. He finished his PhD in NASA and was offered a job in NASA way back in 80s, but he refused to work for NASA because he wanted to work for India. And he returned and joined ISRO. And since he was trained in NASA, he was from the very beginning knew that there has to be a new engine if Indian space program has to succeed. That means you need to have an engine which is much more powerful, much more reliable. So with that kind of a thought process, he joined ISRO, because at that point in time ISRO was predominantly using the solid fuel uh, rockets to the space, and Nambi was trained and he was very convinced that what we need is a liquid fuel powered rocket engines, because with liquid fuel power you can actually control the power amount of power which has to be given to a rocket, and that way you can control and carry the payload of your desire. So with that thought process, he joined ISRO. He was made the project director, and it was in his in his intention to develop a very powerful liquid fueled rocket engine for India. And as you can see in the picture, this engine which he developed is called Vikas engine. I will explain each and everything about this, but let's understand the journey of Mr. Nambi little bit more in detail. Well, his lifelong struggle was to develop a cryogenic engine. And let's understand what is cryogenic engine. Cryogenic is basically using the most potent fuel, rocket fuel known to mankind, which is simply a hydrogen gas. Now we call it cryogenic because hydrogen is the lightest gas and it is the most flammable. So in order to put this fuel in rocket, you need to lower the temperature of the gas so that it liquefies. And as you know, logically, if there is a gas and if it liquefies, it will acquire lesser volume. So you can then put this cool hydrogen gas in a liquid form into the rocket, and it will then it becomes a viable fuel for the rocket. And since rocket has to go into space, there will be no oxygen, so you need to liquefy the oxygen also in the rocket and put as a oxidizer directly into the another chamber. And you have to ensure that these two fuel don't mix, because if they mix, then they will explode. So you need to control the flow of these very cool temperature, at very cool temperature, these liquids, and basically ensure that these liquid mix in a combustion chamber only and in known quantity, and that quantity is known to the scientist. And based on the amount of fuel getting mixed in the combustion chamber of the rocket will be able to control its thrust and its basically speed, etc. The challenge is that the hydrogen gas is the lightest gas. When you liquefy, it has a tendency to evaporate quickly. So you need to have some sort of technology in order to create these tanks and the engine parts made of some specialized material. So that is the first challenge, and therefore development of a cryogenic, indigenous cryogenic engine for India was a feat by itself, because scientists from NASA and the Russians and probably the European space agencies have devoted 20, 30, maybe thousands of man years in finding the optimum solution to create cryogenic engine, and this technology transfer is not readily available. In fact, this technology of a cryogenic engine is very heavily guarded secret. It involves how do you basically control these very cool liquids, do not allow them to evaporate, become gas unless the liquid reaches the combustion chamber, and then when it basically ignites, it produces very high temperature. So the material of which the engine parts are made is also very, very top secret. So India has developed their own Vikas engine, and I will tell you more about it, but this is just explaining the difference between a normal rocket and a cryogenic powered rocket engine. Today I must tell you that all the ISRO spaceships and rockets are powered by this engine, which is developed by Nambi Narayanan. And why we need cryogenic engine? I think that is one of the question we need to ask. We can build a very huge rocket using the solid propellant and all that, and we can increase the power. One, we need cryogenic because hydrogen burns very potently. It produces the highest amount of kinetic energy, which is the heat, and therefore whatever solid propellant you may have will not be as potent as hydrogen. So that is number one. So if you want to basically build a very powerful rocket which can take heavy payloads into the space, you need a very powerful fuel, which is hydrogen. And then you need to liquefy it. That means there has to be a process to basically reduce the temperature of the gas to below minus 200 degrees or probably minus 230 degrees. So it requires a very specialized process to liquefy, to convert hydrogen into liquid by cooling it down and then storing it so that it can be then further evaporated in the combustion chamber and then burned at very high speed. Number two advantage why we need cryogenic engine is that because now we have the liquid will flow through some sort of plumbing into the combustion chamber, so you can control the amount of fuel required at different stages of the flight, which otherwise is not possible in a solid fuel basically in the rocket, because once the solid is ignited, there is no way to control it. Whereas in the case of a liquid cryogenic engines, you can then control the amount of fuel required at different stages of the flight. And the third biggest advantage in a cryogenic engine is that as the gas, oxygen and hydrogen start burning, they actually create a very big bang, but at the same time they keep getting lighter and lighter as they fly up in the air. So the third biggest advantage is that as the rocket basically climbs and gain height, it becomes lighter, whereas the energy, which is energy output, remains the same. So at the time of liftoff, you must have seen that the rocket lift off slowly, but then it gains the speed very rapidly and accelerate towards the space, and within like couple of minutes the flight is over and you are already in the lower Earth orbit. So that is why we need a cryogenic engine. And as I said, the Western countries who had the advantage of developing this technology very early from 40s, 50s, etc., they keep this knowledge as a very, very closely guarded secret, and they don't want to share that knowledge about the processes of storing hydrogen. First of all, converting from gas to liquid. Then how do you store? Do you need a tank which is made of some special material which can withstand that kind of pressure? And then also insulation. What kind of insulation used to prevent hydrogen to become gas again? And then the engine parts, because these when this explosion happened, it creates a explosion of which is hotter than the surface of the sun. So there is no material known to mankind which can handle that kind of temperature. So to have a viable rocket with a nozzle, etc., you need special material and special techniques, which are again very closely guarded secrets of what alloys you need and how you have to build these engines. So India has developed their own cryogenic engine under the leadership and guidance of Mr. Nambi Narayanan. And why we needed this cryogenic engine, I've explained to you. Now, when Nambi was, he is a fellow of NASA. He was trained by NASA, and when he joined ISRO, he told his seniors that they need to develop a cryogenic engine. And that time, the India was in a position where they always look at the technology transfer towards the developed countries. And the Americans flatly refused to give any technology transfer to India because they were worried that India will also develop their rockets, and because of that development, they will basically start competing with NASA. So obviously this is right. The Americans didn't want any other competition to be threatening them. So they refused flatly that they will not give any technology transfer to India. Now, what was happening is that Nambi wanted to develop the cryogenic engine for India at any cost, and then there was an agreement between Indian government and the erstwhile Soviet Union, which was known as USSR, to transfer the technology. So transfer of technology was signed, a contract was signed, but USSR was already very weak and they were on the verge of crumbling. And as you know that in early 90s, the USSR crumbled and became Soviet Russia as a country, as we know, and different blocks became independent countries at that time. So the Americans were very powerful and they ensured that India do not get technology transfer. And as part of that, the agreement which was signed by Indian government as well as the Russian government, the agreement was scrapped. But Nambi wanted that engine at any cost. Nambi knew that if we are developing or if we are in the space race, then India will succeed. And he wanted the cryogenic engine at any cost. So he struck a deal with the Russians because Russians were, they wanted to give the technology, but the Russians were also crumbling. Their country was crumbling and was disintegrating. So within the ambit of the agreement, Nambi convinced the Russians to not to transfer technology, because by transferring technology, you would violate the relationship between India and US. But he convinced the Russians to just transfer, to basically sell the spare parts, and then Nambi and his team will be able to reverse engineer and understand what is required to develop the cryogenic engine for India. So that was done, and that led to a little bit of controversy because Russians said that, okay, we are not violating any legal terms of the agreement. We will give you the spare parts, engine spare parts, and a little bit of these holding tanks, etc. But we will not do any shipment. So, and Nambi got the spare part. Now he had a second challenge of transferring that spares back to India, to ISRO office in India. So he then devised a technique where he engaged with a private transporter from Russia via Karachi, because he obviously wanted to ensure that nobody should know that he is getting the spare parts. So by doing that, he got the spare parts, and there are a lot of things happened which I don't want to talk here, but I think there are a lot of things happened. In the end, Nambi and his team got access to these spare parts, and the USSR crumbled and disintegrated into multiple countries, and Russia emerged. That is how the success of transfer of understanding how cryogenic process works and what are the material used in a cryogenic engine. That is the know-how Nambi and his team was able to gather by doing this. And they developed the engine which is now known as Vikas engine, and using and reverse engineering some of these concepts that the Russians were working on. However, the entire development of the Vikas engine was done by Nambi and his team while working for ISRO. However, once the engine was developed, the Americans were very unhappy. Americans did not want another competition in this space because they already had Russia, they had emerging competition from China, and they didn't want the fourth competitor, I mean the fifth competitor, which is India. The first one, NASA, second is Russian Space Agency, Roscosmos, and then the European Space Agency, Chinese, and now Indian. So they were very unhappy, and they started putting a lot of sanctions and basically putting pressure on the government. And the conspiracy there therefore started. We don't know who started the conspiracy. It is alleged conspiracy, but Nambi was charged about espionage against India because he actually used mechanism which are other than the government mechanism, but at any cost he wanted those spare parts from Russia because he knew that the USSR was crumbling, and this is his golden opportunity to get hold of these some of these spare parts from Russia, and that will help him develop the indigenous engine, rocket engine for India. So he used whatever means available lawfully, legally to him at that time, and he used them without violating any international law. However, the conspiracy was, there is an alleged conspiracy that someone more powerful came under pressure associated with either the government or very higher up in the governance, and he was charged for espionage and booked by the then Kerala state government, and he was put behind bar for 50 days, and he was allegedly tortured, and but he did not agree to any charges which were put forth against him. And then later there was a CBI inquiry also conducted in which he was found non-guilty, and CBI actually apologized for putting such a great scientist to this kind of investigation and this kind of character assassination. And he was cleared in 1996, and later he was also cleared by the Supreme Court of any charges against him. So this is a conspiracy in short, but as I said, this is an alleged conspiracy, and the Supreme Court later formed a special investigating team headed by a retired Supreme Court judge, and those findings will be coming out soon. Soon now, I think we are all waiting for it. But I think Nambi Narayanan, such a great man, he developed a engine for Indian space program, and the best part of this Vikas engine is that it never fails. We have taken beyond the thresholds, the prescribed threshold for the Vikas engine, and it never fails. Therefore, if you put that engine in any of the rocket will basically go to space. It's as simple as that. However, on the personal front, Nambi had to struggle to basically go through the legal process for clearing his name, because his family supported him and his family was with him, where Nambi had to fight the case to the level of Supreme Court because he didn't want to be classified, himself being a fellow of NASA and also top scientist in India. He didn't want to get classified because of the alleged conspiracy that he is a traitor, because he was working in interest of India. So therefore, a lot of valuable time was lost on his personal front and also for the country, because a brilliant scientist was removed from ISRO, and whatever we are achieving now, we could have achieved that 10 or 12 years back. So India as a country lost a lot of time, lot of initiative, and personally it was a life-shattering incident for Nambi himself, because he was such a brilliant scientist, and he developed this engine which never fails, and that is why his brilliance should be appreciated. And finally, he got his dues. He got all the arrears which were accumulated by ISRO. He was also given compensation by the Kerala government, and he was also awarded the third highest civilian award in India, which is called Padma Shri. As you can see in this picture, he is being given Padma Shri by the President of India. So he is recognized. This award was given to him in 2018, and I thought it is important to cover Nambi Narayanan's story in our program today, simply because we need to get inspired by these great people, great Indians who have done so much for our country against all odds. And it is about grit which lead to glory and also bravery. So I think without any other person, if it was not Nambi, he would have shattered, or he would have crumbled against the pressure, but not Nambi. He kept struggling. He finished his job, what he started, basically developing the best engine in the world, the engine which is famous for never failing. And he also cleared his name, which was wrongfully, he was convicted wrongfully, and he cleared his name, and he also got awarded for it. He is also now among the best brains in the country. However, on the personal front, he lost, but he did not care about it. So that is why it's an inspirational story, and I thought I will talk about Nambi Narayanan in my program, which is Grit and Glory. So friends, thanks for watching, and I look forward to your comments, and I will catch you in the next one.